Afternoon all. Welcome to the Vale of Glamorgan Planning Committee meeting on Thursday the 27th of March 2025 at 4 p.m. Bit of housekeeping first as normal. May I remind everyone present that this hybrid meeting of the Planning Committee is being live streamed as well as recorded via the internet, and this recording archived for future viewing. Could all participants please mute themselves when not speaking in order to avoid any background noise or feedback when other participants are speaking? If a participant wishes to speak, can they please raise their hand in person, if sat in the chamber, or use the remote raise hand function? If a participant raises their hand via the remote function and is not subsequently invited to speak by myself, please could they turn their camera on to indicate or place a message in the chat function. When invited to address by me, please could all participants ensure that their microphone and camera is on to ensure that they can be seen and heard when actively participating. If this is not possible for any reason, please bring this to the attention of me and or the Democratic Services Officer as soon as possible. Please ensure that all debate is raised verbally and not via the chat function for the sake of the recording. The chat function may be used to highlight any technical issues and or to grab the attention of myself or Democratic Services Officer. If any participant has difficulty hearing or being heard when they are addressing the committee, they should let me or Democratic Services Officer know. So please could I welcome all committee and non-committee elected members, our officers, public speakers, residents, and also to anyone watching the live meeting broadcast. For your information, we have a number of speakers on two of the items this evening, and you will all have received late reps via email during the last 24 hours. So, moving on with the agenda, can I have apologies for absence, please?
Yes, Chair. We have one apologies for absence from Councillor Johnson.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 2, minutes of the meeting held on the 13th of February 2025. Can I sign these as a correct record?
Happy to move, Chairman.
Thank you. Moved. I'll second that. Declarations of interest. Agenda item 3. Are there any declarations of interest on any of the items before us this evening? I see no hands, so I'm assuming that's a negative. Moving on then, agenda item 4, building regulations, applications and other building control matters determined by the Head of Sustainable Development under delegated powers.
Happy to move, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Hodges. I'll second that.
And I'm happy to second.
Oh, thank you, Mark. Agenda item 5, planning applications determined by the Head of Sustainable Development under delegated powers.
Happy to move, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Hodges.
Happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Agenda item 6, appeals. There are a number of appeals. I think, Liam, you are going to talk to that.
Thank you, Chair. There are 2 appeal decisions in your papers there, both of which were dismissed, both of them proposing new dwellings. I won't go to the individual merits of those schemes, but I'm happy to take any questions back. There was also one appeal withdrawn as well. Good statistics there at the end in terms of 92% of planning appeals being dismissed. And then overall, when you take into account all other types of appeals, it comes up at 88%. So good statistics there in terms of measuring performance. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Liam. Are there any questions? Councillor Wilson, you have a question on this?
Thank you very much. Can I also thank the officers? I think 93% is an outstanding statistic, and I think we should give them a round of applause. So well done.
Yeah, it just demonstrates the professionalism of our officers and how well their reports and so on are considered. Right, agenda item 7, trees. You have the reports on the trees.
That we note that report anyway, first of all, Chair, before we go on to trees.
Sorry?
Move that we note.
Can we move that we note the appeals? Yes, sorry, I apologise. You're quite right.
That's okay.
Yeah. That's
Your
seconded.
second, yeah.
That's seconded as well. Yeah, agenda item 7 now then, trees. Again, the delegated list, these are for noting.
Happy to note.
Happy to note, thank you.
And happy to second the noting.
Thank you. Okay, we come on to the meat of the evening then, which is the agenda item 8, the planning applications. The first of which on my list is land west of St. Lythans. We have, as I said earlier, matters arising. We also have speakers on this matter. But can I ask, I think it's Steve, isn't it? Steve Butler, is it for you to introduce?
Thanks, Chairman. Can I just confirm you can hear me correctly? Because
Yes, we can.
I'm not getting a great signal. Okay, many thanks.
I can hear you online as well.
Right.
What's that?
Just on the matters arising, I've just noticed that the matters arising have been exported on our website appear to contain one page short, which is the council's response to our ecologist. So if I can just call up the response to that. In light of the council's ecology comments, we are proposing to amend existing condition 4 to include line. In addition to that, we are proposing to amend condition 5 in relation to the implementation of the landscaping.
Sorry, Steve, we missed what you said on, you froze for a moment. We missed what you said on condition 4. So if you can go back to that.
I'll try again. Okay, so condition 4, we're looking to amend the condition to include the provision of tree planting and to include a ratio of 3:1 for replacement hedgerow planting. Please stop. Please tell me if this is not getting through. In relation to condition 5, we're also looking to change the wording of the landscaping for implementation to cover the scheme above. In relation to condition 3, we're also, as a consequence of that, just slightly amending the scheme for the translocation of the hedgerow. In addition to that, condition 11, we've also inserted a new condition which relates to a programme for the management of all forms of waste to be generated from the site. Again, that's at the request of the council's ecologist. So just on some of the other matters arising, we've had a number of neighbour objections. We've had comments from Councillor Perry, and we've also had comments from Good Enough Ring Solicitors. Can I just confirm you can all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Thank you. So if I just have the slides, please. Is it available? Okay, first slide, please. So the application site relates to an existing agricultural field accessed from St. Lythans Road.
Sorry, Steve, you're breaking up again a bit. Are you all right to just start again, very briefly?
Yes, I will. Okay. I'll try and keep it brief. The application site relates to an existing agricultural field accessed from St. Lythans Road, St. Lythans. The site is located outside of a defined settlement boundary as set out in the local development plan. The site is within the special landscape area and is also predicted as agricultural grade 3A. So the proposal is for planning permission for 2 livestock buildings. If we can just go to the next slide, please. Just in terms of the where we are, if that little where the cursor is, or where the cursor is at the moment, that's where the access is going to be, which is an existing field access. So the site includes the field access, and then it runs sort of up to the top. So where the area application site is, I think we've got a couple of more aerial shots to show it in a different direction. On the next page, again, that's just looking probably southwards, I suspect. Again, we can see the same site. Members should note the relationship of the site to the dwellings in St. Lythans. If we just go to the next slide. That's existing field access looking in a sort of northeast direction. And then the next slide then is one looking up towards the access, which obviously is going to be utilised as part of the development. So just go to the next slide, please. So that's the layout of the proposal. So as I've said, I have applications for 2 livestock buildings with access from the highway. They are, if you go down to the next page, which shows the details of the buildings themselves, they're steel frame buildings, each measuring 30.5 metres by 15 metres in floor area and 6.8 metres to the ridge. The buildings are proposed to be open on one side and are proposed to be finished in concrete panels with Yorkshire boarding and fibre cement roofing sheets. 10 roof lights are proposed on each roof slope. If we just go back to the site plan, please. So the access track and yard area are also proposed. These will be finished in stone. As I said, the access is from the existing St Lythans Road, where it's proposed to resurface a section 12 metres back into the site, which will be in concrete or tarmac. There's another plan that we have, which shows the 23.5 metre section of hedgerow, which is going to be removed, which is to the west of the access. The idea is to translocate that along the line of the green line as shown, which is to improve the existing level of visibility. So in terms of the application itself, obviously the application has been quite extensively consulted upon and comments have been received from both external and internal consultees. Subject to conditions and informatives, there are no objections. There have been many representations and objections from neighbouring occupiers with their comments summarised in the report and matter.
Sorry, Steve, you've broken off again.
Immediately detrimental impact to neighbours regarding animal welfare, etc. That plan in front of you shows to some degree the timeline of the application. The white block, which is labelled number 1, was the location when the application was first submitted. Sometime after that, following negotiation, the site was changed to site 2, and then latterly relocated to site 3, which is how the application is presented and what's currently being assessed. So I'm happy to leave it there. Sorry about my sort of communication problems, but certainly happy to come back with some clarification if needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Right. We have, as I said, we have a couple of speakers on this matter. 1 for, 1 against. The first speaker, Mr. Richardson, will be speaking on behalf of both himself and other residents of the area, and therefore he has a 6-minute opportunity when he's ready.
I speak for many of the residents of St Lythans. At between 150 to 370 metres from the proposal site, residents are undoubtedly impacted most by this development. However, it is not just the impact on residents we are concerned about. I will explain. First, we must be clear about what the development will actually be. It is not a typical farming arrangement, but the contracted rearing of animals. There are no farm buildings in the vicinity of the development, so the livestock will be transported onto the site and reared entirely indoors. They will remain in the barns for up to a few weeks, 500 plus lambs, 2 to 3 months, 300 ewes, or 6 to 18 months, 200 cows. At the end of the contract period, they are removed from the site en masse in an ever-revolving system. It is clear this system will result in a constant flow of animals to and from the site by large transportation vehicles, daily visits at least twice or more by the farm workers, and the constant transport of food and other equipment to site, and the transport of manure and waste bedding off-site. Neither the application nor the officer's report has properly considered the impact of this. Strategic policies clearly indicate the need to consider the efficient use and reuse of existing land and buildings for proposed developments. Also, policies give clear direction for proposed development towards sustainable locations. The officer report acknowledges these policy criteria and states it would normally be the case that proposal for an undeveloped site should be justified. But as there is no requirement for a detailed justification to be provided, in this instance, the clear direction given is dismissed as unnecessary. Despite explicit policy direction to use existing sites and the implicit nature of policy to consider those sites. To imply that because the applicant is a farmer that the requirement of the policies are not relevant does not seem right. The site is not linked to any particular area of land and could go elsewhere. As such, it is wrong that the applicant has not been asked to evidence his consideration of existing sites. If refused, the applicant is not prevented from progressing their enterprise, with existing sheds and yards on the substantial holding of 285 hectares, the scale and location of which are evident from an aerial photograph and detail in his agent's report. We should not forget that the applicant already operates his business and must currently be meeting all the standards required for animal welfare at an existing site. The applicant has alternatives which would provide his business needs without the negative impacts discussed and which should be explored. The barns are very large, with a combined area of 930 square metres and height of 6.87 metres. The visual impact of the development on this special landscape area would be significant, sited as it is close to the highest point in the local area. It will therefore be visible from St Nithans and beyond. Further development will only increase the impact on the SLA. The Dyffryn Basin and Ridge Slopes SLA was designated as such because of the need to protect against development eroding the rural identity and integrity of the area. One of the key policies in the 2011 designation is to restrict development on slopes in particular. Development on this ridge slope does exactly what the SLA was designed to guard against. Without a landscape visual impact assessment, there has been no proper consideration of the impact on the SLA of the current and inevitable future development. Highways concerns are said to have been addressed by the removal of a section of hedgerow at the access point. The officer report states that the level of traffic will be relatively small. There is no basis for this statement, given the intensity of the farming system already described. Traffic will be frequent, year-round, and will involve large HGVs. There has been no assessment of the suitability of the St Nithans Road. However, this stretch of road was assessed recently for the 2023 Park Walton Solar Farm application and deemed unsuitable for HGVs over the construction period because of the narrow width of the road and sharp bends. The current application involves high-frequency trucking in and out of livestock as well as feed, equipment and manure. The frequent movement of large farm vehicles and trailers will negatively impact on highway safety. Odour and noise concerns for the development have been well documented. Planning Policy Wales is clear that councillors should not rely on nuisance as a means to protect local residents from odour and noise pollution. This is why Town 6 requires particular care within a 400-metre buffer zone. Most of the residents are well within that buffer zone, as we saw from the slides, and are faced with a high-intensity, year-round livestock development and all the noise and odour concerns that are expected for the life of the operation. There has also been complete disregard for biodiversity and green infrastructure. No attempt to assess any sort of species baseline has been undertaken, including the land already developed without permission. The hanging of a few bird boxes does not satisfy what net biodiversity is all about, particularly given the inadequacy of the information about the translocation of mature hedgerow and what was and is currently on site. Leaving these matters for planning conditions is not acceptable when it is not clear what loss might be experienced and whether net benefit for biodiversity can be achieved. Individually, each of these above issues already weighs against the development, but taken together, they are substantial and weigh heavily against allowing development. Some of you will know this area and will appreciate that the proposed buildings would amount to an incongruous development, permanently changing the quiet rural character of this settlement and its environments, including the SLA forever. Thank you.
4 seconds over. Well done. Are there any points of clarification from members of the committee? Councillor Bruce, you have your hand up.
Yes. Did you say that these animals would only be kept indoors?
My understanding is the majority of the animals will be, but the lambs will be put out to field after their couple of weeks with the parent
Right,
sheep.
okay. Lovely, thank you. Thank you very much.
Any other points of clarification? No, I see no hands in that case. Thank you, Mr. Richardson. And we have another speaker on this. This is Mr. Ian Williams, who is speaking for the applicant. He's the agent. Mr. Williams, same rules apply. Mr. Williams, you online? There you are. You have 6
Can you
minutes.
hear me
Mr.
now?
Williams. Yeah, you have 6 minutes from when you start speaking.
Okay. This application was submitted more than 4 years ago, and delays have a significant impact on the applicant's farming business. He's continually had to adapt his plans to cope with inadequate buildings and suffered losses of livestock for want of adequate shelter. The applicant started his business from nothing and has accumulated land over the years thanks to landlord recognition of his farming ability. However, his buildings are scattered and do not meet modern standards. Landlords are unwilling to upgrade or sell to him. He cannot move on. This is the only land available to him. The proposal you have is the third iteration of the same application, each iteration seeing the buildings move further away from St. Lythans to address residents' objections. It was suggested in one submission that the building should be moved towards Nant Bran, which they have done. The building is within 400 metres of residential properties. The removal of permitted development rights does not prevent livestock housing being built within 400 metres of residential property. It ensures that proposals are assessed to full planning applications and that the likely impacts upon the neighbours are understood by decision makers. The Vale has very few sites which are over 400 metres from residential property. The proposed development is not an intensive livestock unit. Objections have largely been based upon this premise. There's been a lot of misunderstanding of the operation on the site. It is not a year-round housing unit for all the cattle. It will serve a traditional Vale of Glamorgan mixed farm where crops are grown, feed the livestock, and manure arising fertilizes those crops. The buildings have multiple uses. During the winter, they will house cattle that graze the farm. In the spring, they provide lambing facilities. As soon as each ewe lambs, she will be moved to pasture, so there are diminishing numbers of sheep in the buildings from March onwards. All year round, they provide calving facilities for heifers and house their calves until they can graze land. In summer, the buildings would not house cattle routinely. There would be just 15 to 20 heifers housed for calving and observation, and 25 small calves. Livestock would be bedded on straw from the applicant's land, reducing straw sales from the site and odour emissions from operations compared with a slurry-based dairy housing. There will be no long-term manure or slurry store at the site. Concrete areas will be cleaned daily and manure removed to fields in accordance with government guidance. Daily cleaning mitigates odour emissions. The odour assessment submitted with this application shows that odours arising from the operation of the proposed unit would not exceed guidelines. Being to the northwest of St. Lythans, prevailing winds would not carry odour across the village. Ammonia assessments indicate that it would contribute less than 1% of the ammonia critical level at the nearest protected site. After calving, cows will return to the dairy herd where they came from, avoiding the incidence of bellowing asserted by some objectors as an issue. The Council's Environmental Health Officer has considered noise and odour likely to arise from the operation of the site and has concluded no harm to residential amenity will result. All lighting at the site would be internal and focused on the confined areas of need, calving and lambing, and only at those times. Highway access and visibility at the existing entrance would be improved by moving the roadside hedgerows back slightly, retaining their integrity and creating wider verges. the hedgerow would not be removed. Traffic would be reduced because current regular articulated lorry deliveries of digestate would be avoided due to use of the site, on-site manure, and sales of bale silage would no longer happen due to use by livestock. Livestock would generally be moved in small numbers with a Land Rover and trailer, and cattle trailer. The site is screened from views from the village by 3 or 4 hedgerows, which will be allowed to grow up and thicken. Together with a new hedge to the west of the application site, it will be well screened. No trees or hedges have been or will be destroyed by this application, and biodiversity will be improved due to the new hedgerow. There are no objections from any statutory consultees, all of which have considerable experience of agricultural operations in a wide variety of locations. It is not unusual to see agricultural buildings and to hear farm animals in the countryside. There has been a huge misconception of this operation. I trust my words clarify the application and reassure that it is not an intensive livestock unit. Its operations will not harm neighbours or the community. It simply meets animal welfare requirements and develop the business of a hard-working new entrant to farming. It meets the ongoing requirements of Welsh Government for higher standards to be implemented. It would be appreciated if you could all vote in favour of officer recommendation to approve this long outstanding application. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. If you just stay online a moment to see if there are any points of clarification from any members of the committee. Councillor Perry, your hand is up first.
Hi, good afternoon. Just very quickly, because obviously at the moment the farmland around the barns is mostly arable. How will the machinery taken into that store differ between the arable, which can be quite large machinery, and what it's going to be used for? I guess pasture and storing animals or growing animals in the barn.
I don't quite understand your question. What's going to happen to the machinery, you were saying?
No, he's asking, I think if Councillor Perry will allow me to paraphrase, he's asking whether there's a significant difference between the machinery that's using on the farm now and the proposed machinery that's going to be used when it changes to animal
pasture system.
Yeah.
Right, okay, fine. Yeah, arable machinery routinely is much larger than livestock machinery. So effectively, yes, you are correct. Arable machinery would, there'll be less of it. So there'd be less large machinery traveling along the road for the arable operations. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and
okay,
it's the combines are quite large machines. Because which route would they normally take in order to access that piece of land?
That depends on where they're coming from. I would like to think they wouldn't travel through the village because there's more traffic in the village than coming from the western side.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other points of clarification from any members of the committee, please? I see no hands. No. See no hands. In that case, thank you, Mr. Williams. We can return to Steve. Steve Butler, if you can address any of the points raised by the speakers, please.
Nothing to add really on that. I'm happy to come back with member questions. Thank you.
In that case, we can move on to any contributions from members of the committee, any comments, any questions that you may have for Steve or for any other. Councillor Perry.
Yeah, this is just for Steve, really. There's obviously, we've been told that a lack of manure storage. The farms I'm used to have got some form of manure storage because you can't spread it normally on fields every day, and it all depends on the weather and other factors. So I'm wondering if manure storage was considered for the site, and how long you might expect it to be kept there. And obviously, there is often an odour associated, perhaps wrongly, with manure. Can you just give us a little bit more detail on what the planning authority thought of the storage of manure on the site?
The report does cover that, and the report does state about how often and frequently it's going to be cleared out. As I said, we have got a condition that requires how waste will be dealt with. That waste will include all elements of waste and scrapings, etc., manure and dirty bedding, etc. So it's more from an ecological point of view, not necessarily in terms of its odour, but there is a condition that relates to how that will be dealt with, as suggested in the late matters that have been circulated. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Any other comments from members of the committee? Councillor Buckley.
Thank you, Chair. And the question I got, I appreciate that the applicant is the third application and he's attempting to meet the concerns by moving it further away. But shouldn't we be enforcing the TAN 6 note to the 400-metre buffer zone?
Steve?
Yeah, so the 400 metres, just for sort of everybody's clarity, that falls within kind of a separate document, the General Permitted Development Order. So that order sets out what you can do without planning permission. And for example, that includes commercial development, residential and agriculture as well. So the 400 metres is a distance set out, but by which you cannot erect a building for cattle within 400 metres of a dwelling house. Now, that is for that development to be permitted development, i.e. not requiring a formal planning application. It is not in any way guidance as to the acceptability or not of development within 400 metres of a house. They are two totally separate things. It's not a guidance document. It's a very prescriptive document with kind of thresholds in it. For example, the same document has distances on it, how far extensions can be built under permitted development. But invariably, like the majority of applications we get, which do need permission, it's up to the assessment of the application then to look at the impacts. So I understand where the 400 metres is coming from as a sort of a benchmark for permitted development. There's nothing to say that the authority cannot consider, with all the information submitted, a new cattle building within 400 metres. Hope that clears the point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that okay with Ian, or do you have anything else?
No, that's fine, Chair.
Yeah.
That's fine. I'm trying to put the hand down.
That's fine. That's why I asked. Right. Any other members of the committee have any comments or questions? I see no hands. Would someone like to move officer's recommendations, please? Councillor Champion.
I'd like to move them.
Thank you very much. And I have a second in the room, and Councillor Wilson's got his hand up as well.
Yeah, and I'm happy to second.
There you go.
So Councillor Hodges and Councillor Wilson. Are there any members of the committee who are opposed to this? Again, I see no hands. In that case, that application is approved. Moving on to application 2021/00852/FUL, Philco Cowbridge. And I believe this one is you, Steve, again.
That's correct, Chairman. And we just have the slideshow, please. Okay, so the site itself relates to the Philco retail store, and an adjacent unit located on High Street within the settlement of Cowbridge. The site itself falls right in the centre of, pretty much in the centre of Cowbridge, within the conservation area, and also falls within the primary retail frontage for the Cowbridge District Shopping Centre. That's another sort of shot there. If we can maybe hover the mouse over the site, which is sort of right in the middle of the page. So the site itself is located adjacent to the River Thor, and to the east is an existing unit. And there's an existing service entrance, whilst to the west there's a vehicle access serving existing car park. We've got a couple of street view shots below on the next slide, which show the site. So that building there in front of you, that's the store itself. So as you can see, you've got a sort of a service lane which runs down the side next to the River Thor on the one side, and then on the next photo, that's the service lane stroke parking area on the other side. So the application site is the building to the left, which is the main Philco store. Sorry, if we go back to the previous one, and the Courteal Coffee as well. That's part of the planning application site as well. So we're just moving on to the proposals themselves. We've got a couple of slides detailing that. So the proposal is for a single-storey extension to the food store at number 2 High Street, which will be on the position of the existing loading bay, which is to the left-hand side. The extension would be approximately 35 metres deep, so it'll run down the length of the existing service bay, and about 3.8 metres wide, with a flat roof to height approximately 3.7 metres to the frontage with High Street, and reduces approximately to about 3.2 metres to the rear. The scheme includes the upgrading of the shop frontage and fascia, finished in York stone cladding with white painted render and heritage UPVC style windows and aluminium doors. The scheme includes a proposed conversion and extension of the redundant first floor retail shop space into office accommodation. So that's actually over the archway in the middle. So the scheme itself will construct a new kind of, that element will be a newly constructed set over an archway with an eaves height of 7 metres and a ridge height of 9.8. Proposed extension will create an infill block, and there'll be that arch vehicle access at the ground floor with office accommodation on the first floor. Another part of the scheme as well is the removal of the projecting element to the shop front at number 4 High Street. So in terms of the application itself, neighbouring comments have been received, raising concerns as set out in the officer's report. In addition, consultation responses have been received and no adverse comments have been received to date. The application is considered acceptable in terms of its impact on the character of the conservation area and also in terms of neighbouring amenity, and subject to a number of conditions. The recommendation to the committee is that the planning permission is approved. The photos there just pick up on the development that runs down the side of the River Thor. So overall, we feel it's an upgrading of an existing building that to some degree probably has a neutral impact at the moment, but the facade improvements to the front, to the High Street side, and the improvements to the River Thor side, it is quite a prominent site. So as officers, we feel that this is a scheme that actually, to some degree, provides an enhancement to the character conservation area. So I'm happy to come back on any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Right, we have no speakers on this, and I don't believe we had any late reps on this particularly either. So, members of the committee, Councillor Perry, your hand is up first.
Yeah, I only got one question for what looks like a great improvement to the High Street, and that is regarding deliveries, because there's going to be that new archway. And is that sufficiently high for larger delivery vehicles to get through? Because I presume they don't currently stop on the High Street, that some will go round the back of the building, some went down the other side. I'm just wondering how the deliveries work to the supermarket.
Steve?
Yeah, happy to come back on that point now. It's certainly a valid point, and it's an issue that officers have raised, and the highway engineer has looked at it. Essentially, I think what we've been told is there'd be kind of box van type deliveries to the rear, and whilst obviously that archway to some degree will prevent your very large articulated lorries accessing, as the highway engineer said in their response, that it's likely that the lorries will be servicing from the high street in the same way that the existing businesses do on High Street, and it's an established arrangement, and they've concluded in their comments that it wouldn't be detrimental to highway safety. So obviously it's very much of a kind of an operational decision for the store to make these changes. So one would assume it's one that they feel that they can work around. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Councillor Payne, your hand is up next. Helen, we can neither see nor hear you. Seems to be a problem there. We'll move on because Councillor Champion, your hand is up next.
Oh, sorry.
Councillor Payne has appeared. Can we take her then, and we'll come back to you, Councillor Champion. Helen.
Sorry about that, Chair. Just wouldn't connect. I just wondered about the pathway as well. Are there going to be improvements to the paving outside and the lane at the side of the river? Is that going to be resurfaced too?
No, there's no works to the footway on High Street. Obviously, all of the works relate to the applicant's own land and buildings, etc. So there's no improvements. So obviously, if they do damage any of the public footway, obviously they'd have to reinstate under standard highway legislation anyway. But there's nothing proposed for any footway improvements. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, and as I understand it, I mean, you were talking about the thing down the side of the building, Helen. I think by the river, I think that's proposed to be part of the new extension. It's going.
Yeah, if we maybe whoever's controlling the slide, we could maybe call the slide up for the ground floor layout. So yeah, obviously the existing kind of service road was never a public route anyway, and that was just a private service yard. So the extension is going to be built kind of right up to effectively almost to the stone retaining wall of the riverbank. So perhaps we've got some images here which do show that. So it's kind of quite a contemporary sort of Louvre detail, but. Yeah, so there won't be. I mean, you're not losing any access because it was just private service yard anyway. But yeah, so I mean that's it there. It's it's just private service yard.
Thanks, Steve.
Okay.
Councillor Champion, thanks for your patience. You're next.
Hi, yes, I'm a local councillor. Just for clarity, they do deliver on the street, and I presume they're going to take the pallets down the side into the car park. It looks like the storage is there now, and I think any improvement to the shop frontage would be welcomed, and the side as well, because that yard doesn't look very appealing. So I think this is an improvement, I think, to Philco with no detrimental aspects, I don't think. So, yeah, I'd like to move officers' recommendations anyway.
Thank you, Councillor Champion. Do I have a second for that? Yes, thank you, Councillor Hodges.
Yeah, happy to second, Chair.
Thank you. Are any members of the committee opposed to approval of this application? Again, I see no hands. In that case, that is approved. Moving on then to application 2024-00832, oblique full. The Lloyds TSB Bank PLC, 9 Boverton Road, Llantwit Major. Again, as I said earlier, we have speakers and matters arising on this application. and I believe, Rob Lancashire, you're taking us through this.
I am indeed, Chair. Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Rob, we can hear you. It's fine.
Yeah, good. Okay. Cover the slides then, please, Liam. Okay, so the application relates to the former Lloyds Bank at 9 Boverton Road, Lantwick Major, the location of which is shown on the slide before you. The use of the building as a bank has ceased, and it would appear that some alterations have recently been undertaken. The application site falls within the identified primary retail frontage within Lantwick Major District Centre as defined by the adopted Vale of Glamorgan Local Development Plan. The proposals seek a change of use from a previous bank use that falls within use class A2 to an A3 hot food use, with the stated user being the pizza chain Domino's. The proposals include interior alterations in addition to changes to the exterior of the premises that includes the introduction of associated extraction equipment and alterations to the premises shop front. Next slide. So this picture is a street view image taken from March 2023, as annotated in the bottom left, showing the Lloyds Bank signage, the ATM, which was previously in situ, and a large expanse of vinyls across the shop frontage. Next slide, please. This is a photograph taken this morning, showing the unit subject to this application to the left-hand side, as indicated by the red dot, with parking serving the shopping parade to the centre, Boots the Chemist in the foreground, and the Chinese takeaway to the rear. Next slide, please. Again, it's another photo showing it in context of neighbouring units. Next slide. So this shows the shop front of the unit now, including the alterations which have recently been carried out to date. This includes alterations to the glazing and the removal of the ATM and vinyls, which were shown on that previous street view image provided. These changes are commensurate to the proposed elevations as shown on the slide before you here. Okay, next slide, please. This provides a side elevation with the front of the store to the right-hand side, showing the setback and the position of the proposed extraction systems, which are above the flat roof two-storey element. To the left-hand side. One more slide, please, Liam. This shows the proposed interior arrangement of the proposed A3 use, inclusive of a provision of a modest seating area for circa 11 patrons to the front of the unit. So just for members' attention, whilst works have started on the site, in the absence of consent, any work or use that requires the benefit of planning permission are completely at the risk of the owner-occupier of the unit. The department's enforcement officers advise that any further work should cease until such time that relevant permissions are in place. Members are also advised of matters arising that have been received, including concerns about the manner in which officers have approached the application, the nature of a retailer and impact upon local business. A full response to those matters has already been circulated to members. Furthermore, comments from Councillor Gwyn John received during the course of the application are also provided in the matters arising notes, as these were omitted in error from the officer report prepared for members' attention. I don't believe there's any particularly salient issues which haven't been addressed in the officer report, and Councillor John was requested and the application was reported to committee, which it obviously is being now. So the officer's report prepared for members' attention is considered to provide a thorough assessment of the salient planning matters. I don't therefore intend to repeat all of its content here, but the following commentary is provided for members' attention. The most relevant policy with regard to the proposals is policy MG14, non-A1 uses with town and district centres of the LDP. This is a criteria-based policy that includes criteria 1 that seeks to prevent more than 35% of non-A1 retail uses within the primary shopping frontage, which this is within. Criterion 3, that prevents uses that create an overconcentration of non-A1 retail uses, and 4, that seeks uses that would complement the character of the existing centre, benefit the daytime economy, and maintain an active shop frontage. The supporting text of paragraph 6.78 is also relevant, stating that A3 uses, including hot food takeaways, can be complementary to existing retail centres, but seek to limit instances of overconcentration of these issues. So I've just run quickly through the considerations against each of those criteria. Now, the 2024 annual monitoring report undertaken by the council noted the concentration of non-A1 uses to be 34.8% within the primary frontage, which is nominally below the 35% threshold sought by policy MG14. However, it's of significant relevance the existing use does not fall within use class A1, noted as being A2 previously, and therefore the proposals would not amplify the existing modest shortfall nor result in a further over-concentration of non-A1 uses, noting the use previously as a bank. The previous use had an ATM and obscured glazed frontage, which did little to maintain an active frontage with the public domain. The proposals would, however, introduce additional glazing, seating and activity to the shop frontage, whilst the opening hours would extend through the day into evening hours. To this end, the proposals would comply with the requirements of criterion. Criterion 4. I've just lost my train of thought. Which complements existing uses and maintains the vitality of the existing centre. It's acknowledged that there are A3 uses within close proximity, inclusive of the Chinese takeaway, which you can just see to the right-hand side of the picture before you, a cafe a few doors down, and a fish and chip shop within the immediate area. There are, however, a number of A1 and A2 uses within this frontage, whilst monitoring figures undertaken by the Planning Policy Department indicate that circa 5% of units within the whole of Llantwit Major Town Centre are currently takeaway uses. Noting this, it's considered that the proposals would not result in a harmful overconcentration within the centre. It's acknowledged that concerns are raised within representations with regard to the national brand nature of the retailer. It's noted that the most recent use was a national chain, bank chain, and there is no policy presumption against such retailers, and this does not constitute a material reason to refuse planning permission. Noting all of the above, it's considered that proposals would conform with the thrust of the mainly relevant policy, which is policy MG14 of the development plan. With regard to other material planning matters, officers have liaised closely with other departments during the consideration of the proposals. This includes no objection being raised by the council's highway development section with regard to the impacts upon parking provision, delivery vehicles and associated highway safety matters. Furthermore, the scheme of odour extraction has been found to be acceptable in liaison with the council's shared regulatory services section. That includes with regard to fume extraction and associated noise issues. Indeed, there's appropriate condition recommended, which includes a post-development acoustic test and any associated mitigation measures to be undertaken. Noting all of the above, members are advised that the proposals are considered to be acceptable, and therefore we recommend approval of the planning application.
Thank you, Rob. Right, as I alluded to earlier, there were late reps on this, and which have been distributed, and we have 3 speakers. The first of whom is Mrs. Chechen, who is a local resident and is with us online. Hopefully, Mrs. Chechen, can you come on screen?
Hi.
You, as you've been told, you have 3 minutes to put to have your say. Your time will start when you start.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. Firstly, I'd like to address the increasing problem of litter and waste in our town. Recent changes to the Vale Council, by the Vale Council, such as removal of bins and a reduction in street cleaning services due to budget cuts, have already made it difficult to maintain cleanliness. A new larger Greggs store, for example, has caused an uprising litter in the local town. Local businesses, including myself, and residents have met with Greggs to tackle this. However, a Domino's pizza, with its heavy reliance on takeaway packaging, is only going to add to this issue, just as a larger Greggs did. Especially with insufficient waste management, it's just going to get worse, and our residents are going to be facing the brunt of this. I'd also like to discuss the over-concentration of the A3 usage in the Llantwit High Street. So I appreciate that Llantwit is bigger than just the strip alone. However, if this application is approved, The figure of A3 uses on that strip where Lloyds Bank is located will rise to 41%. It's currently at a 33% with a cafe, a Chinese, Greg's, and a fish and chip takeaway. So we're then putting a Domino's takeaway there in the middle if this is accepted, which I believe MG 14 and 15 are set to our policies that are hopefully to protect the overconcentration of things, uses like this. Going on further is local businesses. They're another concern, you know, and the fact that a Domino's takeaway is going to impact on locally run shops and restaurants that rely on the community support. It's going to create unfair competition and make it harder for these small businesses to survive. This is a concern that policy MG15, I think, seeks to protect. Over time, this could harm the diversity of our high street and erode the unique character of the town. Parking, while parking has been noted that there is parking outside Lloyds Bank, parking's a significant problem, and any of the local residents will be able to tell you that. It's very difficult to find a parking space in Llantwit, with people often parking illegally, including delivery drivers for other A3 properties in the town. A Domino's is going to increase traffic, what with their delivery drivers, customers, as well as their delivery vehicles bringing goods to the property. This is going to make parking even more difficult for residents and visitors, and I have provided photographic evidence of these issues to the committee members prior to this meeting. Lastly, many residents are feeling excluded.
Make it quick, please, Mrs. Chechen. Your time is actually up. Can you sum up quickly?
I just wanted to sum up basically that lastly, I know of 2 local residents that wanted to go for this property. They were told no due to some sort of agreement that was already going on between the applicant themselves and the landlord. So they were told no, they were excluded. Other uses, there are residents who would have liked to have used that building for other uses.
Thank you, Mrs. Chechen. Thank you. Can I, if you stay on screen, so I can ask if there are any points of clarification from any members of the committee from what Mrs. Chechen's been saying? I see no hands. In that case, thank you, Mrs. Chechen. We come on to our next speaker, who is local councillor Gwyn John. Gwyn, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Right. Well, first of all, I agree with Sarah Jane Chechen, what the lady has just said. But I would add, if you look at Boverton Road and the businesses behind, you've got 7 businesses of takeaways. You've got 2 Indian, 2 Chinese, a kebab, Greg's, fish and chip. Of those 7, 4 sell pizzas. Then we can go to the cafes. There's 2 cafes there which sell pizzas. You've got an Italian restaurant that sells pizzas for takeaways as well as eating on the premises. You've got 2 supermarkets selling pizzas, a great selection of them. So basically, in that small area, you've got a lot of pizza sales. Now, basically, the majority of residents are against another pizza takeaway. Their premises they would prefer would be a good quality shop in the town, because Llantwit Major has become the takeaway capital of the rural Vale. And basically, we are sadly lacking a lot of good shops in the town. I've only included the centre of this area to talk about, because there are other cafes and shops in the town, including that we can include another 3 cafes which also sell pizzas. So quite simply, Mr. Chairman, this is an overbuild of another takeaway, and I strongly oppose this. The lady just mentioned the traffic. Yes, there's a lot of traffic parked on Boverton Road, some on yellow lines, some doubled up, because we don't get the service in Llantwit Major that other parts of the Vale get with enforcement. and subsequently, Boverton Road is cluttered with traffic. There is no need for another Domino's Pizza to come to Llantwit Major. We already have enough pizza shops, and quite simply, I strongly oppose this application on behalf of the residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor John. Do we have any points of clarification from any members of the committee for Councillor, based on what Councillor John's just been saying? Again, I see no hands, in which case we come to the third speaker for this item, Mr. Geraint John, no relation I take it, who is speaking on behalf of the applicants. Your normal routine, 3 minutes from when you start.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. Firstly, thanks for the opportunity to address you today. The application is, of course, recommended for approval, and given the case officer's detailed presentation and the recommendation, I'll keep this as brief as I can. Without repeating the content of the report before you, officers have, of course, carefully and closely assessed the application and found it to be acceptable in all respects. The principle of development has been considered to be acceptable in that it is in accordance with national and local planning policies. Moreover, officers have deemed the proposed scheme as acceptable from an amenity perspective, subject, of course, to the imposition of appropriate conditions. To support the application, extensive assessment work was prepared and submitted. Through consultation with both internal and external consultees, the scheme has been found to be acceptable in all respects, including neighbourhood amenity, highways, biodiversity and green infrastructure, subject, of course, again to conditions. There have been no technical or other objections raised by consultees to the proposal. In terms of neighbouring amenity, SRS had originally raised some concerns regarding the proposed hours of use. As such, extensive dialogue was undertaken with the case officer, whereby the hours of operation were amended to reduce the opening times. Subsequently, subject to appropriate conditions being imposed, SRS considered the application to be acceptable. By way of important context, the proposed hours of operation are less than that of surrounding nearby uses and facilities. Of course, it should be noted that the scheme will bring about economic benefits through the creation of employment opportunities, and not least the reuse of this vacant floor space within the primary retail frontage. Accordingly, it is an economically beneficial proposal. Just to reassure members and to touch on officers, the works undertaken on site are in no way any presumption of getting planning permission. Indeed, the works are simply and only in relation to dilapidations that are required for the previous occupier rather than this particular proposal. Of course, issues of commercial competition are not for the planning process to concern itself with, not least, of course, because this unit sits within the retail centre. So to conclude, and in line with your officers' conclusions and, of course, their recommendation, the development is in accord with the aims and objectives of both national and local policy. It's in this context that planning officers and all statutory consultees have found the scheme acceptable, to be suitable and acceptable in all respects, and the application is recommended for approval accordingly. I therefore respectfully request you to support the officer's recommendation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. John. I'm sorry, Mrs. Chechen, there is no provision for you to be able to address the committee or ask questions under the understanding orders. Rob, would you like to come back on any of the comments, any of the detail as well from our speakers, please? Rob? Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, just taking a while to connect. So in terms, I know there's a couple of points raised there with regard to matters relating to tenancy agreements and what have you, and not being available for other users. I mean, that's not a matter that we can get involved with in terms of, you know, if it's a private market force, so that's nothing really, nothing to do with us. Similarly, the nature of foods being sold at the premises, I mean, the application is for an A3 use. It's not explicitly for a pizza use per se. the nature of the takeaway in itself isn't a reason to refuse planning permission. In terms of litter and associated issues, it is acknowledged, that obviously takeaway uses do generate a degree of kind of disposable material as part of it, obviously the containers and what have you. There are bins available on the frontage of a property. It's also incumbent on users of the premises to make sure that they're disposing of their litter correctly. So in terms of means of controlling any such things, I don't believe it's the role of the planning system per se to require litter disposal strategies and things for users, which would take place outside of the planning unit. So I mean, that's all I've really got to say on the points raised. I think in terms of the points raised in terms of concentration and what have you, I believe that's covered in the report already. There are, it's acknowledged there are other A3 uses in that stretch of Boverton Road, but there's also barbers, various retail uses, the pharmacy, the bank, might be a couple of pharmacies actually. So there are already, there's clearly a significant mix of uses on that area. Thanks.
Thank you, Rob. Yeah, there's a telling on my mic as well. We have a number of hands up already, so I'm asking if any other members of the committee want to speak on this, then please add to that. First up is Councillor Payne.
Thank you. Straight in this time. It's a question for Rob around, in terms of, you say about the use and the concentration of takeaways. What about in terms of the well-being of future generations, in terms of, you say it's not relevant, but would be relevant in the bigger picture in terms of the obesity crisis that we're having and the over-reliance on that type of food. So I wondered, in terms of the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, is that relevant?
Rob?
Well, certainly it's a material consideration. I think it's worth bearing in mind, this is it's a use, it's a takeaway use, it's an A3 use. It's not explicitly the role of our, it's not planning's role to control the nature of food that is sold on these premises. That is obviously a market-driven matter. I don't believe that there's anything in planning policy, which is what we have to decide these applications in, which at this point limits the nature of food and the nature of takeaways that there are. So I understand your point, but unfortunately, I don't believe that is reflected at this moment in planning policy in terms of, and that's what we have to make the decision in line with.
Yeah, thanks, Rob, but maybe it should be. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Mark, Councillor Wilson, your hand is up next.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just a few questions, really. I just wonder, how long has this premises been emptied? That's one question, because that may lead me to a certain view. The second question I was going to ask is clearly on the waste. If there are issues with waste, as some of you know, I've got a role in the cabinet responsible for waste. If there is an issue about this, then please draw it to my attention. Please email me. More than happy to look at this with officers, as I said before, on many other meetings I've been to, not in planning, but other meetings. That's the second issue. The third issue, are there going to be a bit more work in terms of landscaping and trees in the area? And is there any Section 106 money for that?
Rob?
Okay, sorry. They're all very good questions. I believe, and this isn't gospel, I've just had to look at this on the internet. I believe the Lloyds Bank has been vacant since February 2024, looking online at when Lloyds are listing closure of that particular premises. With regard to Section 106 monies to trees in the area, that there isn't currently a provision for 106 money for trees. I know there has been some internal discussions about whether that's something we can look to do. But at this minute, there isn't that lever that isn't adopted policy to provide for trees at this time in that way.
Thanks, Rob. Mark, did you want to come back on that, or is that like no legacy?
Yes, please, if it's possible. Yes, in terms of trees, yes, I'm also happy to look at that as well from my perspective as a cabinet member responsible for trees as well. Happy to do that because we want to increase the amount of urban trees, and I think it will soften the area. To be quite honest, it look better with some trees planted. I mean, and I also think, obviously, the management of waste is crucial in this area where a relatively high concentration. I mean, I've been looking at the SPGs here, and it's not really applicable because it's not being considered. And I just want an answer from the officers as a retail centre, according to the last SPG. But I'd be grateful if that's correct.
Rob,
sorry, what? So can you clarify that question? Sorry, just so I can come back.
Yes,
sorry,
according to the latest supplementary planning guidance of what I've seen, which is I think it was published almost 2 years ago. It is not a dedicated retail centre. Is that true?
Lantwin Major. Well, it's identified as
this particular location, Clement Major. This particular location in Boverton Road.
No, it is definitely a dedicated and recognised and adopted retail centre within. I think it's a district centre within the LDP. Hence why policy MG14 is the relevant one, and it has an identified primary and secondary frontage. Hence why that policy is relevant. So yes, it is a recognised retail frontage.
Thank you, Rob. Councillor Stallard, then.
Hello. Yeah, so according to Planning Policy Wales, the primary objective is to make sure that the planning system contributes towards sustainable development and improves the economic and environmental well-being of Wales. And I'm not sure that this application will do that. And going back to policy MG14, I'm not sure that we can prove that the proposed use would have no unacceptable impact on the role and function of the retail centre. You know, I know it's vacant at the moment, and it's not, well, it's disingenuous to say that you know, if it was occupied by Domino's, it would contribute more to the economy than it does at the moment because it's vacant. And, you know, I just think this would probably take a business away from established local businesses, and the profits won't go back into the local economy. So I'm not entirely happy with this application.
Thank you, Councillor Stallard. Rob, do you want to respond to that?
No, I can certainly respond to it. I understand the concerns raised. Again, I don't believe the text within Planning Policy Wales allows to kind of prejudice between national and local retailers. I don't believe that's the purpose of the context of that policy, and hence why, as noted in my presentation, I don't believe it is a material reason we can refuse planning permission. Whilst I do recognise what you say in terms of, you know, the connections to the local area, there obviously still is a supply chain. I'm not overly familiar with the exact nature of that supply chain and how reliant it is on the local economy. But again, I don't believe that's a material reason to refuse planning permission in this instance.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. There seems to be some confusion amongst members of the committee. This is an application to change from A2 to A3 usage, and the final user of that A3 usage is not a material consideration for the committee. Councillor Buckley.
Thank you, Chair. My question was, in the report, and Rob said we're on 34.7 A3 shops, I think, at the moment. And Sarah Jane, who spoke first, said that this one will take it up to 41%. Are those figures correct?
The 34.8% refers to that was in my presentation refers to non-A1 uses within Llantuit Major, within the primary retail frontage within Llantuit Major. Given that the bank is within an A2 use, it's already outside of an A1 use class. So for the provision of criteria 1 of policy MG14, it's not a material increase in the number of non-A1 uses within the primary retail frontage.
So do you know where the 41% come from then?
I'm not able to verify where the 41% comes from without knowing how the speaker came to that number, I'm afraid.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Cheers.
Councillor Aviat.
Yeah, I'm thinking about jobs for the local community. And I think Llantuit is not that big. It could be like walking distance for some people. And I know a lot of people are against fast food establishments, but a lot of people have cut their teeth on these kind of jobs. It's a good thing to have on your CV. I mean, if you want to go into catering, hospitality, and dealing, you know, I think people skills as well. I think it's I think these kind of places are fantastic for jobs, especially where it's located. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Aviat. Mrs. Chechen, as I indicated earlier, you can't come back into the and speak again in the meeting.
I just wanted to clarify what I said about the percentages. That was all.
If you can do that very briefly.
Really quickly, my percentages were based on the A3 use on that strip alone. It starts from Greggs to the end of Philco. Okay, that's one strip. My percentages were based on that. It's at 33% at the moment. If this application is approved, it will be at 41%.
Thank you for that.
A3 uses on that strip.
Thank you for that. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Assuming you can hear me okay.
Yes.
Yeah, great. Okay, this is a difficult decision for me because it's clear from the report that the officers have considered all those aspects, and we've got the considerations to cover off the issues that have been raised. The people that have spoken opposing it, it's clear that there is an issue in Llantuit with litter, parking, and those issues need to be addressed. Now, unfortunately, I recognise that that's not part of this report because then it's not a material consideration, although we as local people do feel that. One reason I call this particular application in is because I recognise that within the strip there is quite a lot of food outlets, and I didn't think that another one would be the right thing to do. And I was hoping that we could extend the class of use to shop retail rather than just food. So, but as that's not on this application, my hands are tied in that respect. So if we talk about the commercial, we can't utilise commercial aspects. Well, my view would be then if this goes through, the local people would be able to, by representation, by not attending this particular food outlet, that would make the mark because no business would continue to be viable, and therefore they would change. So the percentage of non-A1 users, that was a threshold that I was hoping that we could utilise as an argument not to agree with this application. Clearly, it's being discussed in the report, and therefore I can't utilise that. And all the material considerations have been considered as part of the report, and the officers have come with their recommendation. So I need just to be upfront. I'm not clear as beneficial to Llantuit. There are people that want it. They haven't been as vocal as those that oppose it, but nevertheless, it's the application before us. So I'll just leave the decision for those members that are on the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Wilson, you have your hand up again.
Yes, please. I just want clarification on NG14. I'm reading out proposals for non-A1 retail uses at ground floor level in the town and district centres, and we establish this is the town and district centre, will be permitted where they will not result in more than 35% of non-A1 retail use within the primary shopping frontage. They would not result in more than 50% of non-A1 retail use from the secondary shopping frontage. Okay, so I'm a bit concerned that if we allow this permission, will we be breaking our own policy on MG14? That's the question I'm asking for officers.
Oops, Rob, could you respond to that, please?
Chair, I can just come in on this
Actually,
point.
Liam's got his hand up. Go on. Yeah, Liam.
Yeah, in terms of the policy MG14, obviously the first criteria refers to 35% of non-A1 retail uses. I think what's been clarified in the meeting is the existing or previous premises is A2. So there's no actual increase in, or loss, I should say, of A1 uses. So in effect, the percentage will remain in accordance with that criteria as set out in the report. It'll be, I think we said 34 or that 34.8%. So there is no conflict with that part of the criteria. The second criteria doesn't come into play because that's referring to secondary shopping frontages, and we are looking at a primary frontage here. And in terms of other criteria, it is worth noting as well, criteria 4, where it relates to maintaining an active shop frontage. So I think we did see on the slides earlier that although works have taken place, the shop frontage is much more active. I think it's worth noting that photograph of the Lloyds Bank with the boards up. This will actually create more vibrancy in the street. So that's another consideration that members just need to take into account. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Liam. Mark, you're still on screen.
Yeah, I'm just going to slightly disagree with Liam on number 4 because he says about benefit the daytime economy. I mean, this place will probably benefit the nighttime economy, but that's a relatively minor point. And 35.8 and 35, if we do it to no decimal point, it's basically 35%.
Councillor Hodges, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I start by saying that I regret the loss of yet another bank branch in the county? However, it seems to be part and parcel of the way that society and the economy is going. Saying that, I think we need to have a reality check here. I want that premises filled, and there's been a lot said about who should come in and who it should be let to. Well, that's the right of the landlord to decide that, and they've made that decision. It's a big, active shopping area. There is a huge car park behind it. I don't know what else I can say. I move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Hodges. Do I have a second for that?
I'm happy to second it.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Do we have any members of the committee who are opposed to officers' recommendations on this? If you put your hands up now. I see no hands. In that case, this application is approved. Thank you very much. That concludes the business for today. Thank you all. Let's remind you that our next meeting scheduled is for, well, I found my notes, the 10th of April. Thank you all. See you soon.